Hey everybody, this is Mike with the One Stop Co-op Shop, and today I'm reviewing Orange Shall Overcome, a cooperative game focused on the Dutch resistance against Nazi occupation during World War II. And disclaimer that I received a review copy of this one. Orange Shall Overcome is at its heart a scenario crisis management game. You've got 5 different scenarios to play, and your characters use unique action cards to move around the board, trying to avoid the Nazi police and soldiers, gathering resources, completing objectives, and trying to keep the danger level at locations high so they don't get raided, and also trying to keep their own alibis in check. And there's a lot of cool stuff going on in this one, so let's discuss 5 key things about Orange Shall Overcome. So first, my number 5 point, which is a bit of a mix for my taste, is the threat management of the game, and it comes in several flavors. First, a major one, you've got this morale track that slides up and down, and that controls how many free actions that any player can use, these morale actions, each round, which are pretty cool. They let you interrupt one player's turn to do something with another player. But on the negative side, the game has a rich get richer, poor get poorer problem sometimes. Like if this goes really low, then you're getting fewer actions to deal with stuff, and if it stays really high, you're going to have a much easier time dealing with the challenges during the game. You also have danger levels for locations that will tick down until they get raided, and each character is keeping track of their alibi at the same time, which will lower the danger level in different ways, and then it'll also influence the morale eventually. So all these are interconnected. It is very tactically interesting managing them and trying to keep them from falling apart. For my number 4 point, I'm looking at the pick up and deliver aspect of the game, and this is also a bit of a mix. So pretty much every scenario in one way or another eventually boils down to you needing to get certain types of resources to certain locations, and some of these locations will give you actions you can use to gain those resources. And then in a cool thematic touch, the more resources you're carrying, the more dangerous it is for you as you move around each round, because you're kind of suspicious as having, 50 cans of food on you. And a core aspect of the tactical puzzle is figuring out who can get this resource, who can get that resource, how can we meet together to combine our resources to complete an objective, how can we avoid the patrols. So it's fun, it's tactically engaging, it's thought-provoking, but at the same time it can be so punishing. Like if you realize, whoops, we needed one more blue, there's usually only one place on the entire board to get each type of resource, and it might just take tons of turns to go over and tons of turns to get back. So yeah, just be aware that it is a punishing game. That's where the mix comes in. My number 5 point is a full pro for my taste, and that's the scenario design and the variety in the scenarios. And each of them has a lot of things to tweak in difficulty, not just in the scenario difficulty itself, but the player boards can be put on different sides. And the objectives and the setup are quite varied, and a nice touch is that each of the scenarios is also quite varied in how it plays out and in how you set things up in the beginning. So honestly, this is the kind of game where one of these scenarios probably could have been the entire game, and it still would have seemed pretty cool in a crisis management space. So the fact that you get 5 of them that play very differently and have different things going on and different choices to make is pretty darn impressive, and really gives the game a ton of replay and variety. Next, for my number 2 point, which is also a full-on pro for my taste, we have the characters and their action cards. So there are a bunch of characters in the game, and each one has 3 unique cards. Some of them also have other bonuses, like Jacoby here has a fake pregnant suit that she made to carry extra resources. And first of all, just in a super awesome touch, these are all based on real people who helped the Dutch resistance and were incredibly heroic, and it gives a little biography background on each of them on the back of their character card, and they got the permission and talked to the families of each of these people to use them in the game. Just a really, really cool thing to do, and it definitely makes the theme come to life more. But then on top of that, the variety in the characters is great. Now, their cards aren't too complicated, and they use the same 3 cards every time, so it's not going to overwhelm new players, but they are very strong at some things and very weak at others, and the game feels drastically different when you use one set of characters versus another for different scenarios, and it's just really fun to mix and match and experiment with them. And also, each player gets a secret occupier card, which is kind of the timer in the game as well. These are keyed off of scenarios, so that gives nice variety, and you can see what bad thing is going to happen at the end of your turn as you're doing your turn, and it gives you a nice way to kind of make choices that will mitigate and make the negatives on that occupier card not as bad. I like all the stuff going on here with the actions and the characters. And what the heck, let's end with one more big pro for my number 1, and that is the movement in the game. This is so cool. This is one of the most thematic, interesting movement systems I've seen in a game like this. So you're moving from location to location, and you'll see you have these little Nazi police and soldiers kind of spreading out on the map, and you can avoid them. You can move on safe roads where nobody is located without too much trouble as you try to, as I mentioned, get the resources and do this pick up and deliver thing. But you can also move over them, and when you do, you draw one of these halt cards, and at first you only read the left, and it gives you basically like a little choose your own adventure-ish scenario, and then you make a choice choice without knowing what the rewards and risks are going to be based on that kind of thing. And they have a crud ton of these, so you're never going to quite know what's going to happen with each choice you make. And it's so thematic, it's so tense. It really, playing the game, made me feel like this oppressive nature of like, gosh, I just can't walk from like church to the farm without somebody hassling me and asking to see my papers and all this stuff. And then also the enemies are not staying idle, they're going to move around. And you have a lot of predictability with this because you can see which region is going to be affected by the top patrol card, but you don't know which way they're going to go. So again, lots of tension mixed with interesting strategic choices. Just an awesome movement system overall. One of the coolest I've seen. So overall, if you like crisis management games, things like Pandemic, but especially ones that are tenser and more strategic and more thematic, I think Orange Shall Overcome will almost certainly be a surefire win. On the other hand, if you don't like crisis management games, if you don't like pick up and deliver mechanics, if you don't like a ton of tension and oppressive dread in your gameplay, this one might not be for you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Good gaming, and I'll see you at the next stop.